Indianapolis, a surprisingly fantasy-rich game, Lawrence, and the story here was Jonathan Taylor and his usage.
Yeah, which was, we're all watching the game and we're like, damn, Jonathan Taylor about to go for 200 on these boys, 94 rushing yards. If you're looking at the screen right now, folks, you see 95 rushing yards. He had 94 of those in the first half.
That's the weird thing.
That's the weird thing. That's the crazy thing. But what was interesting was that on his last carry, right before the half, with 2 minutes to go, you see it here. He's gonna get the carry here. He gets tackled, not for a big game, but as you can see, he's gonna get up, and he's slow to get up. Now he's hobbling a little bit, gets helped up. You see there. So, but then they said after the game that there's no injury issue, but clearly right there's something, because he didn't get the ball the second half. So, it looked like he definitely was back last week after a 120-yard day. But the fact of the matter is, whatever the case, Zach Moss is still alive and well after scoring the rushing touchdown for the Colts.
I think that's the important thing, is that we thought, and by we I really mean at least me, that coming into this game, this would be the game where Jonathan Taylor sort of separated himself from Zach Moss, and that didn't happen as well. He played more snaps. He played 61% of the snaps. This is Taylor now, but again, Moss still got 11 rushes. He caught a ball as well. So 12 touches versus 13 for Jonathan Taylor. Ultimately, both guys were productive. He gets a touchdown in this one. The Colts are like the new Cowboys, in which they can't play a normal game. Yep. It's unbelievable. The Colts. What's clear is that they're going to be able to run the ball. I thought they wouldn't be able to run the ball against Cleveland. They ran the ball against Cleveland. Oh, they're not going to be able to run the ball against the Saints. They ran the ball against the Saints. I just need to own the fact that it doesn't matter who they're playing. The Colts can run the ball, and they can run it with Taylor and Moss. We'll track that, see if Taylor does show up on the injury report this week. But they're at Carolina this week. Again, we did say don't drop Moss. He's still going to have value, and that much is clear. It continues to be feels like a 55-45 split between these two guys. Both guys, a lot of fantasy value moving forward.
Yep, and the thing with the Colts is that they don't have any cornerbacks. Their secondary is an absolute mess at the moment, and that's why you're able to take advantage of them, particularly for deep balls down the field. And in that department, Lawrence, yesterday, Rashid Shaheed was the massive beneficiary.
Yeah, and Rashid Shaheed is a dude, man. He don't need a lot of opportunity to do it. He played 18 snaps yesterday, which was 27% for them. What's interesting about him is he is their big play guy. He's done it this year in the receiving game. He's done it in the return game. His snap share by game is weird. This past week in Week 8, 27%. The past two games, over 70%. The past two games prior to that, he was in the 50s. So it doesn't seem like they know when and how they want to use him, because it's like they have their structure with Olave and Michael Thomas, but clearly he's been their most explosive player. He's got two other games this season too with at least 85 receiving yards, but in those two games he has at least 6 receptions. So it's up and down for him. He could score a big play at any time, anywhere on the field, but you never know when it's going to come. I do have him in one league, but it's a 20-team league.
Which is fine.
You throw him in there, and when he scores, it's like, oh, hey, you good.
Right. He is, you use this analysis a lot in the preseason. I like him in best ball. Yeah. But this is a guy that you like in best ball. Again, monster game, right? 153 yards and a touchdown. He got 3 targets. He got 3 targets. He played only 27% of the snaps. He actually ran the fewest amount of routes in a game this season for the Saints. And so it's just one of those things where, he plays special teams, so then maybe they want to limit his snaps. Maybe he just, as a player, he's got a limited route tree, so they want to use him sparingly. Here's what we know he can do. I don't know. I'm just speculating, because he is so explosive. You're just sort of why can't this kid get on the field more? I know they're using him in special teams, but still, whatever. They won this game, so they're probably happy about it as well. Taysom Hill continues to be, incredibly annoying for fantasy managers as well. Two touchdowns on the ground as well. He catches one ball for 14 yards. He throws one ball for 44 yards. Should have been an interception, but whatever. We'll look the other way. I guess tie goes to the runner or something like that, right? I guess the thing on Shaheed is, though, I'm with Lawrence here, is just Shaheed is like the new Gabe Davis on some level, which is like
Almost,
again
yeah.
like
a Gabe Davis Jr.
You got to just if you're gonna start him, you just got to start him and just because you're never gonna be able to guess. It's only gonna be limited. They're gonna take big shots to him, and sometimes it'll hit. So you just either have to start him every single week and not look, or just it is what it is. Like again, just the volume isn't there. It's again the guy had 3 targets. Managed to catch all 3 and had one huge play.
I was almost more encouraged by last week when Shaheed had 8 targets.
Yeah.
He didn't have nearly as good of a game, but did have the targets and played a lot of snaps. Let's get to Rams Cowboys, a game that was
Another
all over
tough
the
game
place.
at the office though for Chris Olave, 5 for 46 on just 9 targets.
And also, congratulations to Alvin Kamara.
Yep.
The Ponzi scheme disappears and he just has a really good normal game for an NFL running back without requiring 13 receptions. Let's get to Rams Cowboys. The story here, Dak Prescott and CD Lamb, Lawrence, they show how explosive the Cowboys passing game can be.
Yeah, and they're starting to string these performances together. Dak QB3 in week 8. He's actually quarterback 1 on a points per game basis over the last 3 weeks. CD Lamb, the top wide receiver in that same span, he brought in 2 touchdowns this week. It's getting interesting here because I even talked about yesterday, if Dak could keep it up on the ground, then we would like his fantasy value. He said, nah, Lawrence, none of that. I'm gonna just throw for this 300 yards, these 4 touchdowns. We gonna get after the Rams ASAP and give them no shot. He's been on point. Dak Prescott has played 1 bad game versus the Cardinals and 1 horrible game versus the 49ers. He's been solid, and now he's becoming pretty good. Other than that,
the positive regression we knew was coming for CeeDee Lamb. You don't need to talk about it anymore, but this is a great. My guy Aites, the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy heading into Monday Night Football as well. Back-to-back games now with at least 7 receptions and 115 yards. So we're seeing this. It'll be interesting to see what they do against the Eagles next week. That'll be a great game. But to your point, I think the bigger takeaway here is that you are right. Dak Prescott, I had him at 1. We talked about him on Fantasy Football pregame. Like I had him at QB 11 this week, which is the highest I've had Dak like all season long. He came through in a really nice way. You talked him up on pregame as well, Lawrence, as expecting him to have a big game as well. He finishes his QB3 heading into Monday Night Football. And that's the important thing is because if he can be this good, it unlocks Jake Ferguson. It makes Brandon Cooks viable in 3 wide receiver leagues, slightly deeper leagues. And hopefully then once that happens, then maybe you can get Tony Pollard unlocked. Because for as good as the Cowboys were, putting up 43 points in this one, Tony Pollard catches just 1 ball for 2 yards. And so nothing in the passing game. He's 12 for 58. Like in a game in which the Cowboys put up 43 points and were leading much of this game.
They're up 33-3 at one point.
How does Tony Pollard not have more work? That's the weird thing as well. I don't know that there's a takeaway. You're still starting Tony Pollard. I'm not trying to buy low on him because I can't imagine anyone's giving him up. I'm not trying to sell low on him. But I think that that's the key is that teams are saying, like, we don't believe Dak Prescott can beat us. And Dak playing as well as he did, maybe now that opens up some running lanes for Tony Pollard.
Yeah, from a real football perspective, real quick, this is just the life for Tony Pollard as a lead running back. With the past 2 years, we've seen him average 5.5 yards a carry. We've seen Zeke pounded in there, then Tony Pollard come in and just, zoom on the tired defense. So it's just like he averaging 4 yards a carry. That's just the life of a running back.
Yeah. I will say this, though. So they're at Philadelphia this week, and I bet you Pollard might struggle this week. But if he struggles again next week at Philadelphia, I might try to buy low on him then because then their schedule is home to the Giants, at Carolina, home to Washington. So, I mean, I do feel like I could see Pollard struggling once against the Eagles. Yeah. I think Dallas will take the same approach that Washington, which is attack that secondary 100%. And not try to run that much. And so might be another lower game for Pollard in week 9, but then we know he's talented and we know this is a good offense.
Yep. And you probably won't like this, Matthew, but I would not sleep on Dak Prescott for MVP, who's 35-1. If he lights up the Eagles against that secondary, wins that game to go basically tied with the Eagles for the division, then all his stats are surprisingly, he's fixed them up and it's a weak field now that Mahomes had that loss yesterday. He's 35-1, I just wouldn't completely write it off.
Yeah, I'll never write it off. But I just...
I know it's Dak. And
I know.
He's kind of...
But you know what? But more it's Dak, baby.
I like Dak. I think Dak's good.
Listen, he's cleaned up the turnovers. Yep. He's played really... Yes. And if he plays well against Philadelphia, which will be a big, national game that everyone will be watching, yeah, I'm with you. I get
Cowboys
that.
can get the 1 seed if they win that game. They have to win that game for him to have any chance.
Honestly, the way San Francisco has played and Philadelphia looks vulnerable, I agree with you. The NFC is a lot more wide open than it was a couple of weeks ago.
The good thing about betting on a Cowboy for an award as well is that if he's the most deserving, he's going to win. Because he plays for the Dallas Cowboys,
Correct.
and he'll get all the attention. Let's go to Cooper Kupp, Matthew, who was 4 of 10 for 21 yards. Now it's still Cooper Kupp, but the past 2 weeks have been bad, and there has to be some concern about his quarterback situation.
100%. I mean, so for the first time since 2019 in weeks 11 and 12, Cooper Kupp has now had single-digit fantasy points in back-to-back games. First time since 2019. First off, just what an incredible streak, right? It's unbelievable how good my little Cooper Kupp is. But under 30 receiving yards in each of the last 2 games. Look, they had a tough matchup last week, and then they played the Cowboys, good defense, and Stafford was banged up. But yes, you're raising your eyebrows a little bit. This is concerning because Cooper Kupp is usually matchup proof and honestly quarterback proof. He should be. So this is a bit concerning as well. Now, they're at Green Bay this week and then they've got a bye. So hopefully they'll get everything figured out. So I can't imagine that there's much you can do other than just you're going to start them and hope. But it is a little bit eyebrow raising, especially concerning if Matthew Stafford misses this game. He leaves the game. He has a thumb injury. He tries to come back. Then they use the Philly special kind of thing. So you see it here on your screen. He gets hit there, and that's where it looks like his thumb goes up against the helmet on the Cowboys. You see him there. He's holding his thumb. He comes back in later in the game, and on a 2-point conversion, they run the Philly special, where in essence Matthew Stafford pitches it out. He goes out on a route. They throw it to him, and he ends up catching the ball. And Stafford dives for the end zone, which he gets in, but he re-hurts the thumb. That's what it appeared on that particular play. We're waiting to see. He's as tough a guy as there is. And to your point, though, if there's a positive here about Stafford trying to come back and play, although because they have the bye next week, maybe they say take Green Bay off, then we've got the bye. So maybe it would just be 1 game he misses. We'll track that later in the season. But think about the NFC for just real quickly. You know that Seattle and San Francisco are going to make the playoffs.
Yes.
Eagles and Cowboys are going to make the playoffs. Lions are going to make the playoffs. Somebody from the South will make the playoffs. But then that last spot, that 7th spot, wide open. I mean, again, because now that Minnesota, we're going to talk about Kirk Cousins here in a second.
It would have been the Vikings.
But the Vikings are out. So the Rams are still very much in this, as are a bunch of other teams in the South.
You know how it's going to work out.
The way that
it's going to be an 8-9
Cousins
team.
Had been playing recently, because he had a couple of games, but then he got back on track without Justin Jefferson. To see him how he been playing recently, and for the injury now to happen, and you see the Vikings now at 500, they look like they was done. The people were talking about trading Kirk Cousins, so it sucks to see that there. But NFC definitely wide open.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the Rams here for a second, it's a little bit. I mean, Ben Skowronek catches 1 pass, but that's for the touchdown for 20 yards. I think had that been Kupp or even Nakua, things look a little bit different here as well. It just, tough game. Cowboys played really well at home. I want to find out what happens with Stafford. The other big storyline coming to this game out of the Rams, I think, was the running backs, right, in terms of Henderson and Freeman. And we thought, it's going to be Henderson. And, in fact, if you look at the box score, Freeman has the better game. But, the truth of the matter is that Henderson got the first goal line carry, got down at the 2, and then Freeman came in and he converts it. He goes 9 for 44 with a touchdown. He was more efficient on the ground. Henderson does get the 12 carries, though, for just 31 yards. But also Henderson more involved in the passing game. He gets 3 receptions for 54 yards as well. So taking out the touchdown, he had 15 touches in this game. He had more total yards. Freeman gets the touchdown. Feels like it's going to be a little bit of a hot hand.
Yeah.
I think I'd still rather have Henderson because the
he got
passing
more
game
carries
usage.
too.
He got more carries. He got more touches. I know Freeman was more efficient and he fell into the end zone, but Henderson did get a look there. If they have to go to a quarterback, if Stafford misses this game, you'd expect them to want to run the ball quite a bit. Both guys might have flex value next week with some teams on bye as well.
Yep, and Jordan Rodrigue, who covers the Rams at The Athletic, she's reporting that the Rams have not ruled out IR for Matthew Stafford. So we'll see what happens there.
And that would be bad. That would change. If Stafford goes on IR, that would be bad, obviously, for Kupp and Nakua and everyone else. Jordan does a really good job covering that team. So I would take what she says to the bank.
Indeed.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.